For 15 years, Cara Harding had been right. Every possession, every haunting, every voice from beyond the grave had turned out to be something simply human beneath the myth. She built her career on finding the truth no one else could see. So when her father called and asked her to see one last patient, she expected it to be just another mystery with a rational answer waiting underneath. Another frightened mind, another story she'd unravel. She agreed to go before she had even heard the details. By the time she arrived, she was already certain she knew what she would find. She was wrong. And before it was over, that single mistake would unravel everything she thought she knew about the world. Dr. Cara Harding has spent her career proving people wrong. As a forensic psychiatrist, she has made a name for herself tearing apart case after case of alleged multiple personality disorder, dismissing each one as psychological theater put on by troubled minds. She is sharp, methodical, and certain of herself in a way that borders on closed-mindedness. Her father, Dr. Harding, also a psychiatrist, has watched her become increasingly rigid over the years, and he worries about her. Cara is also a widow, still carrying the weight of losing her husband and raising her young daughter Sammy mostly alone, with help from her brother Stephen. Cara is at the airport, already tired and ready to get home. Then her father calls. He has a patient, he says. She is annoyed. She has her own schedule, her own life, but she agrees. At the hospital, a young man is wheeled into the room. He introduces himself as David Bernberg. He is soft-spoken, polite, with a slight southern accent. He explains that his legs were paralyzed in a car accident when he was young. Cara runs him through standard visual tests, the kind used to detect color blindness, and David passes without any trouble. He can clearly see the numbers embedded in the circular patterns. She is ready to wrap up the session and tell her father that this case is just the same as any. Her father asks her to wait. He picks up the phone and dials into the room. When David answers, Dr. Harding asks him to put Adam on. David says there is no Adam. Then something crashes inside the room. When Cara walks back in, the man sitting there is not David. He gets up from the wheelchair without any effort, stretches his legs, walks around the room. His accent is completely different. Meanwhile, David has a southern drawl. His name, he says, is Adam. Cara runs the same visual tests. Adam cannot see the numbers 16 or 73 in the pattern where David spotted them immediately. On a separate test, a plain arrangement of green circles, Adam says he can see a 7. Cara places a red filter over the card and the 7 appears. He is red-green color blind. David was not. These are not just different personalities. They are different bodies operating by different rules inside the same skin. Cara takes Adam's files home and begins going through everything. Her father hands her a box of the case documents, and she digs in, the way she always does when something refuses to make sense. She notices that the X-rays taken separately for David and Adam show different physical structures in the neck. Their blood appears to differ. She keeps telling herself this is a constructed deception, but she keeps reading anyway. She tracks down a man named Dr. Charles Foster, a family friend and colleague who originally found and referred the patient. Charles was the first person to meet David and later transferred the case over to her father. When Cara meets him, she notices blisters on his neck. Around the same time, she learns something that stops her cold. Every single person her patient has claimed to be is already dead. David Bernberg was a real man, crippled in an accident, who was tortured and murdered in 1983. Adam Saber existed. Wesley Crite existed. All of them are on the ground. She drives out to the mountains to meet David's mother, a deeply religious woman who answers the door with quiet grief still living behind her eyes. She confirms everything. Her son David was killed years ago. She believes the man Cara has been treating is possessed, and she will do whatever she can to help. When Cara brings the patient back to the mountain location where David died, something shifts inside him. He does not become Adam. He becomes someone new entirely, a frightened and disoriented personality who calls himself Wesley Crite, a heavy metal musician who took his own life in 1994. 3 dead men living in one body. Meanwhile, Charles Foster's health collapses suddenly. His skin begins to rot. He vomits black dust from his mouth. He dies without any medical explanation that makes sense on paper. Then Cara's own father begins to cough in the same way, the same slow deterioration starting in the chest and creeping outward. She notices a shadow near the patient sometimes, a dark shape that seems to pass over him and sink in while he sleeps. She goes to his house looking for answers and finds a body inside. It is later confirmed to be the real Adam Saber, the man whose identity her patient had been wearing. She calls the police and reports him as a murderer. When she goes to collect Sammy from soccer practice, she finds her daughter already chatting comfortably with the man, who is now presenting as Charles Foster, the fourth dead person to surface. Cara pulls Sammy away, furious and frightened, telling the man to stay away from her family. But the illness keeps spreading to everyone who has gotten close to this case. She follows the strange symbol she has now seen in multiple places, on the body in the house, on a wall near David's childhood home, at his mother's property. It leads her back into the mountains to an old woman the local people call Granny, a witch doctor who lives alone and is revered and feared by the people around. Granny turns Cara away immediately. Cara leaves, then sneaks back when she hears sounds from inside. Through a gap, she watches Granny cut open an elderly man, draw something invisible out of him by pulling it through the skin with her mouth, and blow it into a clay container covered in the same symbol. She removes a cancerous mass from his body, closes the wound, and breathes whatever she took out back into him. The man sits up. He looks completely well. He looks like a man who was never sick at all. Granny turns and looks directly at Cara. She asks her if she still only believes in science. Cara then visits a local man who was a child during the town's darkest period. He shows her a silent home video his father shot decades earlier. A priest arrived in this mountain community, a man named Reverend Christian Moore, preaching that faith could cure anything and that witchcraft and pagan ritual were worthless. He was charismatic and convincing, and the people believed him. When a flu epidemic tore through the town, they held on to their faith and trusted him completely. Then they discovered the truth. Moore had secretly inoculated his own daughters against the illness while his congregation died around him. He never believed a word of what he preached. He was a fraud who let people die to protect no one but himself and his children. The community killed his daughters. Then Granny did something that could not be undone. She removed Moore's soul from his body and blew it into the open air, then packed his mouth and nose with soil so it could never find its way home again. She cursed his hollow body to become a shelter for other faithless souls. Since that day, the body of Christian Moore has been walking the earth without dying, absorbing the souls of people who have lost or abandoned their faith in God. When he takes a soul in, that person dies. David Bernberg, Adam Saber, Wesley Crite, Charles Foster. They were not personalities. They were victims. Their souls are trapped inside a body that belongs to a dead priest who has been cursed to keep collecting. The police tell Cara that the man in custody was released to her father. She looks up at a projector screen showing photographs from the 1918 influenza epidemic and recognizes the face staring back at her. It is him. It has always been him. Reverend Christian Moore, over a century old and still hunting. She calls her father and cannot reach him. Then she hears it through the phone. She listens, helpless, as Moore kills him. She calls Stephen immediately, her voice barely holding together. She tells him that Sammy has been getting sick, that a symbol has appeared burned into Sammy's back, the same one she has seen everywhere. She tells him to take Sammy to Granny right now. Moore arrives at Stephen's house wearing the face and voice of Dr. Harding. Stephen hides in the bathroom and is hurt in the confusion that follows. Cara gets through on the phone and tells Sammy to put it on speaker. She demands to speak to David. The shift happens and the body drops, because David Bernberg needed a wheelchair, and this body always obeys. Stephen grabs Sammy and they run. They reach Granny. Cara gets there too. They show her the symbol on Sammy's back, desperate for something to hold on to. Granny looks at it and tells them she cannot help. Sammy stopped believing in God. Because of that, she will simply become another soul sheltered inside Moore when he takes her. There is nothing Granny can do for someone who has already given up. Moore arrives. He wears Cara's father's face and voice and moves with total confidence. He puts Stephen on the ground. He overpowers Cara. Then he performs the ritual on Sammy, drawing her soul out and pulling it into himself. He turns to Cara afterward and calls her Mummy, looking at her through her daughter's eyes while her daughter is gone. Cara grabs him. She wraps her hands around his throat and forces him down, and she drives a root jutting from the ground through his neck. As the faithless priest dies, every soul he has been holding escapes at once. Sammy's body takes a breath, her eyes open. Cara holds her and does not let go. Then Sammy begins to hum. It is a quiet, simple melody, and Cara goes very still because she recognizes it. It is a tune that only David Bernberg ever knew. Cara had gone into this case the way she always did, certain before she opened the first file. What she found instead dismantled everything she thought she knew. A dead preacher walking the earth since 1918, kept alive by a curse older than anything in her textbooks. 4 stolen souls trapped inside him, like men buried in the wrong grave. Her father among them now, gone in a way she could not fix or explain or file away. She had ended it on her knees in the dirt with her hands around his throat, and when Sammy opened her eyes, Cara pulled her close and held on like the ground might shift again at any moment. She was not ready to let go. Then Sammy began to hum, soft and wandering, the way she did when she was lost in her own thoughts, and Cara went still. She knew that melody. She had heard it once before from a soft-spoken boy with a southern accent who had been dead since 1983. It was living now in her daughter's throat, and Cara held her tighter and said nothing, because for the first time in her life she did not want the explanation. That's it for today's story. But before you leave, I gotta ask, if it were your daughter humming a stranger's song, would you want to know whose soul was behind her eyes? Or would you just ignore it and pretend like you never heard it, knowing the horrors that could follow? Leave your thoughts in the comments. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to subscribe for more twisted stories like this. See you in the next one.